Well, ladies and gentlemen, it would appear that the Ubisoft investor proxy war has escalated, and I've got a story from Reuters exclusive here for you guys to see. Ubisoft activist investor says it has the support of 10% of shareholders in management tussle, and this is actually crazy that this happened because of the fact that AJ Investments, the people who started this proxy war in the first place, reportedly have less than 1% stake in the company, yet they are working overtime to convince people to come over to their side so that they can complete their hostile takeover of Ubisoft, oust the CEO, Yves Guillemot, and sell off the company's assets so that they can bring the company into a brand new era free from all of the nonsense that is causing its share value to drop dramatically. And speaking of stocks, we've got some of that to cover today as well. So we've got to read this story from Reuters. An activist investor pushing for a sale of Assassin's Creed maker Ubisoft has gathered support from 10% of the French video game publisher's shareholders. It said in a letter on Thursday that was exclusively shared with Reuters. These guys have some serious talent to be able to convince other investors that are staked in this company to turn on Ubisoft, and it appears that that is reflecting in the chart, and AJ Investments is actually getting a leg up in this proxy war. It's actually really interesting. So many media outlets were saying that AJ Investments could not have an impact on this company's future, but it appears that they are doing what they can to make an impact. AJ Investments, which has less than 1% stake in Ubisoft, said it was in talks with private equity firms for its push. Quote, "We call on the management of Ubisoft to allow the sale of the company to third parties or private equity firms at a fair price," the Slovakia-based activist investor said in the letter, which would be made public later in the day. They did not name the investors in its letter and declined a Reuters request for the names of the investors, but this is what they're claiming, and this is huge if so, because so many were claiming that they don't have enough influence to actually do something like this, to pull something like this off. The move comes weeks after AJ Investments called for a CEO change at Ubisoft and urged it to go private or be sold, and since then it appears that these people have been working their butts off to get into the minds of these other investors to prove that Ubisoft is a bad investment. They are a bad bet, and so is their CEO. It appears that whatever evidence they've been showing to these other investors, it is convincing them. They may actually be onto something with Yves Guillemot purposely tanking the stocks in order to buy up the shares and take full control of the company where they cannot be challenged. That's the point that they want to get at, Tencent and Guillemot and his family. And AJ Investments have pointed this out, and investors are actually listening. I didn't really know if this was going to be an effective strategy, but it is making an impact, and I feel that that is the most important part of this story. The company's shares have declined more than 30% so far this month after the letter from AJ Investments dated September 9th and following Ubisoft's announcement that the release of the next Assassin's Creed game would be delayed by 3 months. So the delay definitely happened, and rumors are circulating as to what kind of changes they're going to make in 3 months. Now, some people were saying, oh, they're probably going to remove Yasuke, because Paul Tassi was like, hey, I've been hearing some rumors that they're going to try to erase Yasuke in 3 months, but he doesn't believe that it's true, and I don't believe that it's true either. Maybe he's just trying to bait people into getting mad, but I do not believe it. Another important note, Valiant Renegade actually pointed out that Ubisoft has lost about 90%, maybe even more than 90% of its total share value from its peak a few years back. So when people are saying 30% or 56%, it's a drop from that current point that it's at, and right now it lost 30% in the last month from its previous point, which was already at a 10-year low. So when they're saying 30% or 56%, just keep in mind that this number was already very low, and I'll get into that momentarily. Ubisoft is run by its founders, the Guillemot family, which owns 15% of the firm, followed by Chinese gaming giant Tencent, which owns just under 10% according to LSEG data. So the Guillemot family is trying to amass total and complete control. So the strategy is to purposely tank to a very low point so that the Guillemot family can swoop in, buy a bunch of shares, and increase the percentage of ownership. And realistically, this is the only way that they can gain full control, and who knows what they're going to try and do afterward. And it says the underperformance has sparked questions about Ubisoft's strategy of launching new licensed intellectual property at a time when gamers are sticking with already proven titles. They do say that they will speak with Ubisoft's management on Tuesday to discuss its proposals. So they're taking that 10% and they're running to these people and they're going to say, well, we have 10% support. Are you guys going to oust this CEO? Are you going to turn ownership over to us, or are we going to have to start convincing even more people with the evidence that we have gathered while we've been invested in this company? I'm sure that Ubisoft is panicking. Absolutely panicking. Have you seen the kind of controversies they're dealing with? They're being attacked from all angles. Japan, Europe, the United States. Government agencies are looking into them. They have an internal investigation. They're also facing a strike. A union strike, that is, because a bunch of people are upset that they have to come into the actual building to do work while they've been remote workers for a long time. As I've said in previous videos having to do with Ubisoft, these people cannot catch a break, no matter what they say, no matter what they do. And it reflects in their charts here, Ubisoft Entertainment. About 10.5 euros. And did you see this gigantic drop? It's just insanity. This was right after I reported that their shares had taken a nosedive, because this right here was a huge drop in itself. But the fact that it made a gigantic drop the next morning is insane to me. And Valiant Renegade and John F. Trent from That Park Place pointed this out, that this would happen, and they were correct about this. And it is just hilarious seeing that number climb because investors were either buying up shares or other people were buying into the dip, because it just gets lower and lower each day. As I have said, they have a repeating pattern of dropping, raising just a little bit, dropping again, raising, dropping, raising, dropping, dropping. But now it seems to be dropping more than it's rising lately. And perhaps that's why Ubisoft is panicking and writing letters to a bunch of people saying, hey, listen, we're not woke anymore, okay? We're not trying to push an agenda. I know that we've said every single week, every single month that we're pushing an agenda, but really, we're not. We're just lying. We're lying to you. We're lying to everybody. We're just a bunch of liars. However, lying is something that Ubisoft has been doing for a while, and I'm gonna say right now that they're not very good at it either, because people see right through their BS, and they probably know it too. All of this backlash that they have been getting, they have been ignoring and trying to pretend that everything's fine, gaslighting people into believing that they are not pushing an agenda, that their game is going to be a huge financial success, etc., etc. But people are figuring out the truth, not just on the gamer side, but also on the side of people that actually have money invested into this company. Ubisoft developers reportedly reveal company brushes off legitimate criticism as toxic gamer talk. Of course they do. And DEI policies have led to brain drain. And this is from That Park Place. So they say alleged Ubisoft developers claim that the company either ignores legitimate criticism of its business practices and games, or brushes it off as toxic gamer talk. Now, this was reported in a very popular video that has sprung up in the past couple of days from YouTuber Legendary Drops. He reports that he spoke with a number of Ubisoft developers and specifically asked one, quote, how Ubisoft internalizes and discusses general criticism from players and the rest of the industry. And that's an excellent question. And he actually got an answer. The developer responded at a high level. They rarely talk about it. At a project level, they brush it off as toxic gamer talk, because it's the gamers who are responsible for all of this negativity. It's gamers who are toxic, not Ubisoft, who ignores all of the backlash. No, it's us who question their integrity. It's us who question what kind of agenda they're trying to push when they've made it clear themselves that they're trying to push an agenda. I mean, is this really rocket science, ladies and gentlemen? No, it is not. As Asmongold correctly pointed out in one of his videos, Ubisoft is filled with toxic positivity that prevents growth, and That Park Place relates that situation to Concord, and you will see similarities with those two situations. There was a bunch of toxic positivity behind the scenes when they were developing Concord, and because of that, they ended up spending way more money than they needed to, implementing things that conflict with other things that have already been implemented that actually make the game worse. And ultimately, this game and the company failed because of the toxic positivity, the pushing of the agenda hardcore, and the 8 years of hundreds of millions of dollars being spent and delayed development. There are a lot of problems with Concord that have already been exposed, and we're seeing similarities here. It goes on to say that after being asked about Japanese gamers sharing their own criticism of Assassin's Creed Shadows, the developer stated, the criticism hasn't been talked about, and Ubisoft only issued demands that we mustn't engage with discussion on that topic publicly. And this is also something that we saw in Concord development. Behind the scenes, the developers were saying, shh, no, guys, shush, you cannot talk about this publicly. Only say nice, positive things about this game, and that's what Ubisoft is doing. They're saying, shh, Stop it. Stop engaging with negative discourse. We don't take constructive criticism or feedback from gamers. We do exactly what we want and we push the agenda just like our overlords command. So they're not allowing people to talk about it in-house, which is really harmful for the game's future development. And as they say here, it is not unheard of, and I agree with that. We also have another story that aligns with what is going on here. Video game maker Ubisoft in chaos after anti-DEI backlash. The Assassin's Creed game maker delayed its biggest launch of the year, reduced forecasts, and is facing calls to sell in what is being called an incel victory. I can't believe that I'm even seeing that word as a descriptor for what is going on with Ubisoft. This is a huge financial chaotic situation. It's not just a few white dudes with no girlfriends saying something about Ubisoft and then Ubisoft reacting to that. They are getting backlash from all angles across the gaming space, and yet these people are trying to reduce it down to just a few white dudes who have a really hard time getting girlfriends. They're the ones who are criticizing Ubisoft. Have these people lost their minds? It says the Paris-based video game publisher pushed the release of its biggest game of the year from November 12th to February 14th of next year and warned investors that net bookings would no longer exceed the 2.3 billion euros of last year. Their money's going down, their financials are going down the drain, but come in at a disappointing 1.95 billion euros. That sent shares lower Thursday, continuing a rough year for the company. Year to date, shares are down 57%, and that's why I said to be alert when they say that the shares are down a certain percentage. They are down a certain percentage from the point that they were at previously. So keep in mind, as Valiant Renegade points out, that they have lost almost or about or around the amount of 90% of their total share value, which is a catastrophic failure that almost no other situation besides Concord can be compared to. This is one of the biggest failures, if not the biggest failure in the gaming industry so far. How is Ubisoft going to survive all this? And that is a question I keep asking myself and everybody else as the days go by. And here's a very important part of this story that I want to share with you. It says the bookings shortfall was technically due to the delay and disappointing sales of Star Wars Outlaws. However, the underlying reason for both of those, at least in part, is the far-right opposition to diversity and inclusion. Of course it is. It's always the far right who are at fault for everything ever. Every financial flop, every video game flop and movie flop and backlash from anybody, it's always just far-right people. White people who can't get girlfriends, white male gamers who can't get girlfriends specifically. It says here in the highlight that review bombing driven by anti-DEI backlash seemingly worked. Seemingly, I wouldn't say seemingly, it actually did work, because if you look at this chart, it's definitely working and many people are talking about it, including Japanese gamers, which you media pundits love to gaslight people into believing that they are not actually pushing back against any of this. But sure, let's go back to the story here and set off a chain of events that led to Wednesday's announcement. Quote, "We believe Star Wars Outlaws was impacted by a coordinated effort that sought to troll Ubisoft games specifically and Star Wars content in general." Yeah, buddy. It's the white people again, wrote Michael Pachter of Wedbush in an analyst's note. This is a case of a rare incel victory that led to Ubisoft having to take down its numbers. These people really have a lot of nerve, labeling all of these gamers who just want to share their opinions on the internet as incels. Do you know what incel means? It says right here, incel is a term associated with an online subculture of people, mostly white, male, and heterosexual, who define themselves as unable to find a romantic or sexual partner despite desiring one, and blame, objectify, and denigrate women and girls as a result. That's just insane that these people in the media can just gaslight and lie and say such terrible things about others. People that they don't even know, and yet they call us the gaslighters. They call us the negative ones who are insulting and harassing everybody. It's just insanity. But this is something that we have to deal with. Unfortunately, this is reality, which brings me to the next story. The current DEI backlash is both cynical and naive. The Fast Company says this stuff. Those leading the attacks against DEI initiatives have been disingenuous about why and how they're doing so, but seem legitimately deluded about what will happen in the end. Well, I feel that the real deluded ones are you people in the media who keep ignoring and omitting facts at every turn. But Ubisoft and the media themselves are known for panicking whenever the other side starts to get a leg up in the conversation and an advantage in the battle against diversity, equity, and inclusion being pushed into every shred of media that exists. It says that DEI is the new CRT is the new BLM, another scary acronym that is coming after your kids. Unfortunately, the attacks on it are indeed gaining traction as some companies abandon their 2020 commitments to DEI. Others are looking for loopholes and gray areas to continue their aims. Yes, this is because they're evil, deceptive, and deluded. But it goes on, perhaps under another name. If these programs do survive, though, rest assured the people attacking DEI now will soon find a new thing to call what they're really against. And yes, these people are labeling us as ists and phobes, bunch of racists who are bigots who can't stand any kind of change whatsoever. And these are the people that defend companies like Sweet Baby Inc. and companies like Ubisoft. In fact, Ubisoft and Sweet Baby Inc. are interchangeable at this point, since it was Ubisoft employees who formulated Sweet Baby Inc. in the first place. You see, it's stories like these that rub people the wrong way. The media has been attacking innocent people for years now, for a plethora of reasons. You name whatever kind of reason that you want. You've seen it yourselves, and you've seen it time and time again. Unfortunately for them, people in the real world who look at this stuff and actually make informed decisions based on critical thought and common sense are seeing what's happening, and now they're starting to take action. Gamers are voting with their wallets. These companies who are invested in Ubisoft are finally starting to say no, and they're pushing back, and now the proxy war is gaining traction. The calls to oust the CEO are gaining traction. Again, I think it's important to point out to people that Ubisoft is no longer the company that it used to be. They haven't pushed out a really good, essential video game in many years now. I mean, I feel like the last really good Assassin's Creed game that actually got me super hyped was Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and that was back in the day. I kind of liked Origins, I kind of liked Odyssey and Valhalla, but I always noticed that there was something missing from these games, and it shows right here in their stocks that their quality has imploded over time. Their passion for making really fun video games has imploded, and their ambitions have completely died out, replaced solely by a diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative that they are pushing into everything that they do. They're pushing it throughout their departments. They've admitted this time and time again. They're discriminating in their hiring practices, which is technically illegal, so that they can prioritize ethnic individuals who love diversity, equity, and inclusion being pushed into everything. That's what they are trying to do. It's what they love to do. It's amazing that the CEO is actually entertaining all of this negative backlash and coming straight out to say that they're not pushing an agenda. I mean, think of all of the people who wanted an agenda to be pushed into an Assassin's Creed game. They're seeing what the CEO is saying, and they're thinking, wow, this guy really is a liar. Maybe he really should be ousted as CEO and should be replaced by somebody who actually loves to push DEI. Now, those of us who actually pay attention know the real truth, but what I'm trying to say is that Ubisoft is pushing everybody away. They're ignoring backlash from both sides, and they're lying and gaslighting. That's exactly what they do. It's all they really can do at this point to save face. I'm not sure it will pan out very well for them, but I'm not going to say just yet that they're going to erase Yasuke. I feel like in 3 months' time, that is really an impossible task to accomplish, and I'm pretty sure that Paul Tassi, who said it right here in this story, was just hearing a rumor. He heard a rumor on the internet and he put it in his article, and he said that's literally impossible. He says it's essentially impossible at this point, and I agree. But even if they did remove Yasuke from the game, that would not help anything. Ubisoft as a company has lost the respect of its fan and customer base. It's not just Assassin's Creed Shadows, it's everything that Ubisoft has been doing for a number of years. And even if Assassin's Creed Shadows is a failure or a success, nothing will change how people feel about this studio. And that's all I've got for you guys in this video today. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you haven't had the chance to like it and share it with your friends, that would be awesome. And hey, if you're feeling ultra spicy, consider subscribing to my channel so that you're always up to date on what kind of thing I've got going on. I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Later. Meow meow.